Some people have strength, and some people, well, they might have flexibility. But it's rare for people to have both strength and flexibility unless you do movements that actually encourage this. So instead of sitting on the machines at the gym or hammering away on the cardio and not gaining strength and flexibility, you should do these two bodyweight movements that you can do from home instead, all right? The first one is going to be a movement called the split squat. I'm gonna start with a beginner variation of the split squat and work my way up to a more advanced variation, each time increasing the strength required and the flexibility required to perform the movement. So if you can perform any one of these movements for 10 perfect repetitions, then feel free to go on to the next one. So for starters, if you're a complete beginner, what you're gonna do is come into a lunge position. So one foot's backwards, one foot's forwards. Something to pay close attention to is I'm not balancing on a balance beam here. My feet aren't right behind one another and I'm not trying to create more balance. I'm trying to create strength and flexibility. So it's the same as if I had a hip width stance and I took that foot back straight backwards on that line. From there, what you can do is hinge forward through the hip. So I'm pushing my butt back and I'm gonna put my hand on my knee and I'm gonna slowly bend this back knee, come halfway down and back up using the strength of my lower body and my arms. And I want this to be, the majority to be 70% on the front leg, 30% on the back leg. I'm trying to work this hip hinge. On this side, I'm trying to work this glute, right? I'm trying to work this strength right here and this flexibility as we get deeper right here, which I'll show you in a sec. That's the first variation, is a supported half split squat. So that's it, using your arms, supported half split squat. If you can do this for 10 repetitions easily, then we lift the arms and we do a half split squat. So you're coming about halfway down and back up. Halfway down and back up. Again, trying to load the glute and the hamstring of the front leg as we do this. If you can do 10 repetitions of that, well, then we can go a little bit deeper. I'll switch sides so you can see more of that glute loading I'm talking about. You're gonna come all the way down and then back up. And you're staying in this position where your feet are fixed, we're pushing the butt back, we're bowing our body forward, our back stays flat still, we're not rounding like this. We're gonna drop that back knee, feel a stretch through here, and then come back up, okay? And the more we bring our body forward, the more we feel the stretch through here, the more upright we keep our body, the more we feel a stretch through our hip flexor on the back leg. So depending on where you're tight, you can kind of shift your posture to create more of a stretch in those particular areas. Now those are fun, those are 3 beginner variations of this movement, but if you can do 10 repetitions of that regular split squat, now we can add something to the mix that makes this significantly harder and create significantly more flexibility, which is elevating the rear foot. So here's what that looks like. One foot comes out forward, one foot comes backwards. Your toes are on top of the bench like this, or if you want, you can do the top of your foot like this. Just don't let your ankle cave to the side like that, which is gonna misalign your knee, okay? So from there, what we're gonna do is the same thing, only this time, I'm gonna allow the knee to come all the way down to the ground like this, or as far down as I possibly can. This is gonna create a really deep stretch in my back hip flexor, and also oftentimes create a stretch inside my hamstring and my glute of the front leg. This is a challenging movement that requires a lot of flexibility and a lot of strength to get through a full range of motion. Make sure that you're going slow and controlled at first as you practice this movement and trying to get into that full range of motion where the knee is almost all the way back to the chair and this leg is fully flexed all the way up towards your belly as much as possible. The more depth, the harder this is. What that means is if I have a lower surface, like a lower chair, then guess what? It requires less flexibility. But then if I have a higher surface, like take this armrest for example, then it requires even more flexibility for me to come down and bring the shin back in alignment with the chair like this. You're gonna feel a really deep stretch and it's gonna be a challenging strength movement at the same time. And I got one more variation for you. If you're able to do 10 repetitions of that, it feels good, you're able to do it with really good form, then guess what? You can add explosion to this movement and make it an incredible cardiovascular and strengthening power exercise at the same time. That looks like this. Foot back, you drop the knee down to the ground, and then we jump up and land safely. And we jump up and we land safely. So now we're getting strength, flexibility, power, and cardiovascular output all at the same time with one lower body movement. One of my absolute favorites for strength and flexibility for the lower body. Now let's talk about the upper body, okay? Perhaps my favorite movement for the upper body to get strength and flexibility at the same time is a movement called the Hindu push-up. So just like we did before, I'm gonna start at the beginner variation and I'll work your way up to what I'm talking about, which is called the Hindu push-up. So if you're a beginner, we're gonna start with a chair right out in front of you, like this. And all you're gonna do is come from a plank position, squeezing the glutes like this, squeezing the core, and activating the lats by pushing hands down into the chair. Okay, so keep the hands pushed down in the chair. You'll feel these muscles right here firing. We'll go from here Then I'm gonna push my butt back, and I'm gonna let my body come down between my shoulders and stretch the shoulders. And then I'm gonna come back up to the plank position, squeeze my glutes, and then I'm gonna do the same thing, just like that, okay? So if you don't have the flexibility to get your body into a nice neutral position or a straight position here, then guess what? We wanna work this one to start gaining the flexibility so that we can then go to the next step, which requires flexibility and strength. And each step's gonna require more and more flexibility and strength. So that's step number one, is just going from plank to a down dog on the chair. Now, step number two, how we like to make things harder sometimes at WeShape, we lower the height of the surface. So this time, I'm gonna go from plank on the low chair to the same thing, downward dog, bringing my belly button towards my thighs. And this one's gonna give you a lot deeper of a stretch in the calves and the hamstrings. And if you can do 10 repetitions of this, it feels good, with good form, then we can add in the second portion to this movement, which is an upward dog, so looking up. So a lot of people too with their wrists, if your wrists are tight, turn your wrist to the outside like this, that can be really helpful for you, especially as we start to add in the upward dog. So here, what we wanna do is go from our plank position, that's nice and tight and safe on our core, squeeze the glute muscles, open the chest, don't let the shoulders shrug up and come forward, pull them back and push them down like this. And this is the upward dog position we wanna be in. From there, we're gonna push the butt up and back, bring the head between the shoulders, and go back and forth between these two positions, okay? So this is our low chair, up dog to down dog, okay? If that feels good to you, then how do we make it harder? Remember, lower the surface, the height of the surface, and we can do our up down dogs on the ground just like this. So coming from a down dog position, stretching the calves, the hamstrings, the shoulders, and the upper back, and then coming through to an up dog position where we open the chest, we stretch the hip flexors, we stretch the abdomen, we stretch all the muscles on the front side of the body, and going back and forth, just like this. Now, if you can do 10 repetitions like this, it feels good. We're gaining some flexibility, we're gaining some strength. Well, then the last variation is the movement I was talking about at the beginning, the Hindu push-up, which is going to add an arm bend on the way down, okay? Now, how we scale this movement to make sure that you get started off on the right foot is in the beginning, only bend your arms a little bit. And then over time, a little bit more, then over time, a little bit more, and then eventually to the point where you're almost scraping your nose on the ground as you come through. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So to start out with, you come from that downward dog position, you bend the elbows a little bit, you bring your body through with just that slight bend of the elbows, you squeeze the glutes, and you go into upward dog, and you then reset back to downward dog. If you can do 10 of those, then we can see, can I come down to a 90-degree bend in my elbows? And then press up to that upward dog, and then back to the downward dog. If you can do 10 of those, then the next step would be, can I scrape my nose on the ground, like really close to the ground the whole entire time, and then bring my body within millimeters of the ground before pressing into that upward dog, and then back into that downward dog. That is the Hindu push-up that we want to get to right there. But as you can see, this is an incredible upper body, core, really full body movement that's going to help you gain strength and flexibility at the same time. Now here's the reality. These are such incredible movements that if you practice the split squat and the Hindu push-up variation that felt like the right fit for you 3 days per week, guess what's going to happen? You're going to gain strength, flexibility, and you'll also gain balance and coordination, which are the 4 attributes that we help people gain at WeShape to help you feel better in your body. Oh, and by the way, if you like these 2 moves and you want to put them together into a follow-along workout, along with dozens of other moves that will help you feel better in your body, well then you should try out WeShape. All you have to do if you want to give it a shot for free is click the link below.